The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. To prepare for President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s inauguration, authorities have closed several roads in the vicinity of the National Museum. Starting today until 11 p.m. of June 30, Padre Bugos Avenue, Finance Road, Maria Orosa Street, and General Luna Street will be closed to motorists. The Ayala Boulevard and Victoria Street will also be blocked off on June 30 from 4 in the morning till 11 p.m. In line with this, the MMDA will implement a rerouting scheme for PUVs and private vehicles. Northbound motorists from Ross Boulevard should turn right at UN Avenue or Calao Avenue, then turn left at Taft Avenue. Now, those heading to east coming from Ross Boulevard should turn left at Calao Avenue or UN Avenue, then turn right at Taft Avenue. Now, with COVID-19 cases slowly climbing once again, authorities are urging protesters to take their inauguration rally online instead of gathering in person. The PNP claims massive rallies may become super spreader events. This after Octa Research reported that COVID-19's positivity rate rose to 5.6% on June 22 from 2.9% on June 18. One former Supreme Court justice says the Duterte administration has failed to address the country's dispute with China in the West Philippine Sea. Maricel Halili has the details.
The Philippines has terminated its talks with China for a joint oil and gas exploration in the West Philippine Sea. Foreign Affairs Chief Chodoro Locsin Jr. said it has been on the table for 3 years, but they have not achieved anything. He also insisted that the government will not allow it to push through at the expense of our sovereignty.
One step forward from where we stood on the edge of the abyss is a drop into constitutional crisis. That explains the sudden pullback on my part.
Former Associate Justice Antonio Carpio said the government made the right decision because when the two parties were about to sign the third and last agreement, Beijing wanted to delete some provisions.
China said, we will not agree to enter into the third agreement unless you change that provision. Delete the provision which says the oil and gas belongs to the Philippines. Delete also the provision that Philippine law will govern.
However, he still gave the Duterte administration a failing mark in the issue of the disputed territory. Carpio said Duterte should have not allowed Chinese vessels to fish in the country's exclusive economic zone.
The Chinese just scared us because Duterte allowed himself to be bullied by China. That's why we're back to square one. We should follow what Malaysia did and what Indonesia did.
Moving forward, Carpio encouraged the incoming administration to submit to the arbitration. It means that ASEAN countries like the Philippines must identify the boundaries of their own territories. The government must also encourage other nations to sign in order to recognize the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
The Department of Energy says it will continue to pursue talks with service contractors on explorations in the West Philippine Sea. This as the country no longer pursues its negotiations with China for a joint oil and gas exploration. Companies include state-run Philippine National Oil Company Exploration Corporation, Nido Petroleum Philippines, and PXP Energy Corporation. Now, as of November 2021, they hold service contracts to explore gas and oil deposits in the area. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Malacanang expressed exasperation over the possible resumption of the ICC's investigation into President Duterte's war on drugs. In a statement, acting presidential spokesperson Martin Andanara said the administration has investigated the deaths from the lawful drug enforcement operations. Andanara also insisted that Duterte's drug war was supported by the United Nations through the 3-year joint program on human rights that took effect in July last year. The palace official told the ICC to let the efforts of the Philippine government run their course. For one former CEO of Planned Parenthood, the Supreme Court's decision to overturn its Roe v. Wade ruling is all about power and controlling women. Let's watch this.
This decision is not about abortion. It is about power and patriarchal control over women, especially having a negative impact on poor women who can't travel to other states or other countries, and people of color for whom these consequences will fall most harshly. There is no doubt of that, because we've seen that before. Some of us remember before. And so the next steps have to be that literally we start over again, creating a new jurisprudence, a new legislative basis for women's civil and human rights to make their own childbearing decisions. What we need to understand is that all civil rights are under threat. So it's not just women who will suffer. It is women, their families, and also it is an economic issue as well. You know, there is not a woman who is in an executive position right now who could have been there 100 years ago, both because of law, but also because there was no way for women to reliably be able to plan and space their childbearing. Well, now there is, and it is huge. It will have huge implications, economic implications for families and for companies.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 10:15 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.